Hi, Dr. Case.
Hey, Keen, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm good. I'm alive.
That's it.
That's it. That's all that matters. Alive
Yeah.
is all me. So it's all good. You got any questions? Anything?
Um, well, not for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Did your grades reflect correctly in Moodle? Did they fix that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 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 It did.
Okay. Good. I know a few people had the same issues. Um, wait a minute here. Just answering all kind of emails. Um,
So far, the class has been running smoothly.
yeah, not bad, not too bad. Little ups and downs here and there, but all in all,
Mm-hmm.
you know, everything's good. Good, good students, good engagement. So can't ask more for that. You
Yeah.
know. Um,
That's good.
let me see.
I was telling a friend of mine that if I hadn't, maybe my final dissertation is not technology related, it will have been human resources related because it seems it's interesting. Human resources.
No, you.
Actually, I read that because there was this while going through, I read a survey, I went through a survey,
Mm-hmm.
you know, about a guy, about a guy that raised the issue of machine learning, artificial intelligence being exaggerated in
Oh,
companies. You know,
okay.
what it simply means is, they get to a company, they have the knowledge, they get the technicalities, but they get to a company and they realize that, oh, well, fine, maybe Excel would have done this better. Or, all this little, the guy was like, they advertise for machine learning, but the
Yeah,
managers at the end of the day, because they're not that trained,
yeah, not trained for that.
they're not trained for it, which is an HR issue.
Yeah,
Because they're not that trained for it, they end up protecting themselves, but because they have to protect their jobs.
yeah.
They don't want some smart geeks, to come over and start messing them up. So they
Talking, yeah,
so they
talking nonsense.
so
Go ahead.
I mean, the authentication that is needed, the tools that are needed,
Yeah,
they kind of like, oh no, you don't go here, you don't go here. So
right.
it becomes that's where the exaggeration comes. It's not as if machine learning itself is not it's in existence.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence is in existence, but when you get to where you should use it, you
Mm-hmm.
realize that what they advertised for is not what they're doing, and they've not prepared the relationship
Mm-hmm.
between the IT and you, that you're doing the machine learning. Machine learning is more of data intensive.
Yeah.
It's not, it's less of coding and applications.
Yeah.
It's
I
more
mean,
of data.
yeah. I mean, it's you're right. The coding isn't as
It is.
bad.
The
It's
coding,
really
oh, the
about the
coding
data.
is there.
Yeah, it's
You,
about the
you have to
data.
be able to use a Python and
Yeah.
all these other, yeah. But it's more of you getting the models right
Yeah.
than using the software to implement it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when they now get there, those who are to synergize with them, they realize that they're not they're not because they feel, oh, these guys are higher than them. They're
Yeah.
in the machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics. That has become the latest technology so far
Yeah.
in demand.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the guys that are there doing normal database driven applications, they don't want to share information. So he kind of like realized that, okay, maybe it's been exaggerated in companies, and I'm like, maybe that's the work of the HR, that needs to set, show the relationship between, okay, like if you're gonna do machine learning now, you should be able to connect with in the banks, you should be able to connect with financial data.
Yeah, I
You
got
don't
you.
just be writing applications,
Yeah.
designing applications. So that's how interesting. Hi, Fatima. So I
Hi,
guess
Aki, how are you?
I'm good.
Um, hey, how's everybody doing? Fatima, Nazmul. All right. All right. Nazmul, while I have you here, I'm missing something from you.
Yeah, I'm still to submit the draft.
Okay. All right. As long as you know that.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I was going to tell you. I'll be submitting it by tomorrow night.
Okay. All right. No worries.
Professor,
right.
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please upload a copy of the case study because I don't have a textbook?
Oh, that's a
I
good
tried
one.
looking up online, I couldn't find it.
I don't have the textbook either.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't have the textbook. Does anybody have the actual copy of the case study?
Case study?
Nobody. I don't think anybody does.
No one has it? Get out of here.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. And you guys don't have a copy of the book either?
I was going to think I'll check online to see if there's a copy or whatever.
No, the school should give you the book. You should have got the book from Rupali.
School rarely has it. It's usually for the professors only. Just one copy, that's it.
Yeah, I don't have a book.
Sometimes you gotta go to the library and ask Rupali.
Yeah, you mad to ask Rupali. All right, let me see here. The only way I can think about doing it now is to actual Polly to look at the particular case study and to copy it somehow. But I don't know if she would do that. All right. All right, let me think about it. Maybe I had to change the whole case study to something else. Let me think about it. I'll think about it while
Just give us points. It's okay.
Huh?
You don't have to do it. Just give
Of
us the
course not.
points.
No,
It's
no,
okay.
yeah, it's
we
okay.
won't mind.
I know you. I know it's okay. It's all right. I know you guys don't mind. You guys
We won't
always
be sad.
always thinking about me and my concerns and my welfare. I appreciate that, Fatima. So sweet. And the whole class, very nice of you. Consider it. But I'm gonna take the burden and put it on my shoulders.
No, you don't have to really.
And make sure that I get the proper case study to my outstanding students who are so considerate to me. Okay. Yeah, I'll let me check. Let me think about it while we're in class, and then if not, then I will change the whole case study to something else. It'll be a little easier and quicker. Because I didn't realize that they changed the case study policy, which I don't remember when they did that. And the case study, I should have actually gave you the case study in week 2, and you submit it in week 6. So if you go look at the case study, I shortened the case study because it was actually 10 pages. I brought it down to 3 to 6 because I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. But either way, next
How much
class,
are we gonna write? 10 pages is a lot.
yeah, it's a lot to write. Yeah, it's a lot to write in addition to final paper and all the other stuff. So I shortened it. So if I can't find this particular case study, what I'm gonna do is I have something else that I use that's really good, that's HR related.
I have a
question. Huh?
How many case studies we have for this?
Just one.
So usually we get like 2 case studies,
Yeah, it's just one case study.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, one case study. That's it. So I might just put that one case study in there. It'll be easy and everything. All the instructions are included in there, and it's pretty straightforward. So I might do that, but let me think about it while we're in class.
Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Okay. All right, any other questions related to anything else? Everybody's grades okay? Are they showing up in the portal now? Yeah. No more zeros, unless you didn't turn something in, of course. But
I haven't checked it yet, so I don't know.
okay, no worries. Just I know if there's an issue with grades, everybody will email me about their grades, so I don't worry about that too much.
I don't like checking grades.
You don't check your grades?
I do, but I don't like it.
Oh yeah, well, hey, it's not always pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not always pretty, but hey, get the job done. That's it. Get it done. Get this over with. All right. So today we're going to talk about compensation, and we're going to also talk about something else. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. All right. So we all know compensation is important, right? This is really where, at the end of the day, this is why people work, right? To get compensated, right? It's no longer like, people owning farms and that kind of thing, working for themselves and compensating themselves, right? The better your farming and your harvest, the richer you are, right? So if you think about back in the day, if people grew cotton or grew tobacco or grew corn or grew rice or whatever the case may be, the better their harvest, the more money they make, and they start to grow. From Industrial Revolution, we realize, okay, no more farming. Now we're moving into the city. We're working for other people. How do you compensate someone adequately for the job that they're doing, right? Because now you're really paying for someone's time, right? That's what it really turns out to be at the beginning, right? But because I'm paying for someone's time doesn't mean that I don't want a quality person, okay? I can get someone who's breathing to maybe do the job, but I don't want someone who's just breathing. I want someone who's capable, is smart, can make decisions, good decisions, right? And help me do the job without me having to necessarily have to be everywhere at once. Okay. This is really what it boils down to. Because I can't be everywhere at once, I have to pay people to be different places where I need to be. Okay, as a company, all right, as a leader. So because of that, I have to make sure the compensation makes sense. Okay. If the compensation doesn't make sense, that you're not going to attract, you're not going to get the right people, and you're definitely not going to keep them. Right. There's a reason why McDonald's turnover rate is super high. Okay. Nobody stays at McDonald's forever. Right. They get in, they have a job, they do what they got to do, and then they roll out. Right. Because McDonald's doesn't pay much. Neither does Walmart. Neither do a lot of places. Okay. Because the job doesn't require much skill, right? Doesn't require much aptitude, right? It's pretty straightforward. You do certain things and you get compensated, right? But when you're talking about a huge organization, when you're looking for managers, supervisors, people to groom to become leaders, you have to figure out what's the appropriate, either salary or base pay or hourly pay that I need to give that person in order to get them to perform at their best and bring that skill set to the company, right? That's really what we're looking at, right? In addition to that, I just can't pay you, just a compensation. There's other things that go with it, right? Healthcare, time off, other advantage of bonuses, I guess, not bonuses, but other perks or compensation that don't necessarily directly relate to just money. Okay. So I have to also think about that because, again, as we talked about before, it's not always about the money. Sometimes you really love your job and they don't pay you much, but you love the job. Some jobs you really hate, but they pay you so much money that you're like, I can't leave right now. Okay. They pay me $250,000 a year to really not do much. Okay. So I'm not going to leave. Okay. And so when you look at those two things, you have to figure out, okay, what are the things that are, kind of driving people as far as compensation wise to stay or leave in the organization. Okay, you got to figure that out, right? And always every organization is different and every level is different, right? And so not every job demands a salary. Not every job needs hourly workers per se, right? or long-term workers. Sometimes it's seasonal, sometimes it's temporary, but whatever the case may be, you still have to figure that out, right? And then once you're done with the compensation that, as far as working for the company directly, what happens when you get older, right? How does that play into the system, right? Because we could work basically till we die, but most people are not capable of that. Most people, they get to a certain age, they're tired of working, and sometimes they're not capable of working, right? So how do we ensure that those people have some form of income, right? Something to help them out when they get older. All that is wrapped up into compensation, right? Payroll tax, right? Bonus tax, everything gets taxed, okay? The company matches your payroll tax because you pay payroll tax as an employee, but the company also pays a payroll tax for you, right, to the government, and then the government uses that money to do whatever they do, right? So when we look at a compensation system, we have direct compensation and we have an indirect compensation, all right? And our direct compensation is really looking at base pay and those incentive pays, right? Commission if you're in sales and that kind of thing, profit sharing, stockholders or stocks, right? Warrants, those kind of things, right? And then you have your indirect compensation, which is more or less of, hey, you get an award or you get time off per se, or you get FMLA, family medical leave, right? Or you get life insurance or tuition reimbursement. So there's a couple of things that companies can do to really give you indirect compensation, right? Some places have, like when I worked at Toyota, we had a gym, Olympic sized pool, we had a dry cleaner, there was a babysitter, we got a car, right? All those things were indirect compensation, right? To come work for Toyota, right? And so did it directly go into my bank account? No. But at the same time, I had 2 cars. I drove my Toyota car, all right, or whatever car they gave me, Lexus or whatever, they gave me. But I drove that car and they took care of everything. They took care, except for gas, right? Insurance, maintenance, all that stuff. The company took care of it and they gave me the newest car, right? And it was part of my package. So you have to look at the things that you can do as a company in order to really attract that talent, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's really about. Attracting the talent and keeping the talent. Okay. And there's a company across the street who is paying more for the same job. Guess what? You're gonna probably leave. Okay, you're probably gonna roll out, right? Unless it's such a toxic environment to where you don't want to go work for that company and you're willing to take a cut or keep, stay where you're at, right? Because people are willing to take a cut in pay in order to get the job or do the things that they love, right? And so if you look at, why people stay and go, right? Stay or go, right? It's usually tied to the compensation, but secondarily, it's tied to the management, it's tied to the leadership and how they feel, that how they value they feel, right? That's all really it boils down to. If I make you feel like you're important and you're a key piece to this company or this team, you're more likely going to stay, even if you don't necessarily get a big raise or make a lot of money, right? You're going to stay. And so you have to still look at it, right? In the sense that how do I equitably, pay this person, okay? Based on what they're doing, what the outcome is, okay? Also, you got to look at, comparatively speaking, right? If I have all the students in the class, right? Each one of you gets your grade based on your performance, okay? That's your compensation. Your grade is your compensation, right? So depending on how you perform, your grade will reflect, okay? It's the same thing in the corporate environment, except for that once you pretty much sign the contract, you're stuck, right? The company's stuck, you're stuck, okay? Until you go back in and say, okay, well, you know what? You've been doing really good work, or you deserve a promotion. So with the promotion comes a raise and that kind of thing, right? But we're comparing it also not only to ourselves, but to what others are doing, okay? If Fatima's in there doing great, going above and beyond, right? Everybody else, then somewhere along the line, Fatima's going to tell herself, wait a minute, I'm doing really well. I'm doing more than anybody else. I I should get more money. Okay, that's just the natural thought process. All right. But she's looking at what she's doing as compared to what everybody else is doing. But she doesn't really know what's going on with everybody else, all right? Because Akeem could be working on some special projects for me. Nazmu's working on some special projects for me. Femi's working on some special project for me, right? And she doesn't really know everything about what's going on, right? So again, each one of you will have a different compensation relationship with the company, okay? Because Fatima will go in, and as a woman, unfortunately, Fatima might get 75 cents, 80 cents to the dollar, okay? Whereas the males will get $1, right? That's a different relationship for T and the company have, right? But it's inappropriate, but at the same time, it's a compensation issue that needs to be resolved that's been in the works forever. And it's fine, it's slowly getting there, but it's gonna be a while before compensation as far as equity goes, balance between genders is happening, right? But again, we're looking at, what do we deem fair as far as someone coming into the workplace, all right? Akeem, you got a question? You look like you're deep in thought. No? Okay. All right. Okay. No problem. All right. So now if we look at, the different types of equity, right? We have internal equity, external equity, individual equity, and that all feeds into the perception of fairness, right? Most, if not all things in life are about perception, right? How I perceive my work, right? How do others perceive me, right? You may not think that you're doing great, but I may think that you're fantastic. You're just like, that's it. These are the best students I've ever had in my life. Okay, best class I've ever had. Now you may not see it that way, and somebody else may not see it that way, right? But it's about perception, because once I form my perception, that will give me an idea as to how do I compensate this person. Okay, that also gives you kind of like your catalyst or your kind of your cues sort of as to how much motivation am I going to have, how much commitment, and how am I going to perform, right? Because if I don't feel like I'm being treated fairly and compensated fairly, I'm not going to be motivated to come to work, right? I'm going to do the least possible work I possibly can, right? And I'm going to perform right at that level where it's like I'm doing just enough that I meet the requirement, but not anything more than that. Okay. But that's based on the perception that you have of how I'm treating you as an organization. All right. If you feel that I'm treating you well, you're getting compensated well, and that you're getting what you need out of the company and out of the things that you're doing, you're getting some kind of satisfaction, then you probably be fine. Okay, your motivation is gonna be high, your commitment is gonna be high, you're gonna perform well. But if compensation isn't there, you're gonna have not only you're gonna have little to no motivation, you're gonna have little to no commitment, you're gonna have poor performance, but then you're gonna have on top of that employees that are trying to steal from you. Okay, it's bad enough that I'm paying you for a job that you're not actually doing, but now you're trying to find ways in which you can take advantage of the situation, right? Because you so much feel that I'm not compensating you properly, right? And we see this all the time, where you'll have a store or you'll have an organization where people are taking stuff, or they're cutting corners. Oh, I know I worked 7 hours, but I'm gonna put I worked 8 hours today, right? Or I know, there's a bunch of, that, for instance, if you work at a restaurant per se, right? Oh, I know there's some shrimp and there's some other stuff in the fridge. You're not gonna miss that. They don't pay me enough anyway. You go in there, you take a couple of steaks, some shrimp, a couple of lobsters, take it home with you. Okay? Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Companies account for that. Okay? Companies always have this buffer for what we call pilferage. All right. So pilferage is basically people, we know that employees are going to take stuff. Okay. And it may be very subtle. You may not even think about it. All right. Oh, you got a pen from supply. All right. You're supposed to put it back, but you take it home. Right. What'd you say, Keen? Okay, you're on mute.
Oh, I was saying the same thing, that you just take it home.
Yeah, you take it home, right? You take a pen home, you take a couple of things home, and then next thing you know, you have 10 pens from the company. You got a box full of pens, right? And they all belong to the company, right? But you don't think about it because it's not necessarily a big deal. All right. But again, those little things a lot of times indicators to whether or not someone is satisfied at work. Now, a pen is a little, unrealistic. Nobody steals pens because they don't like their job or they don't feel like they're compensated. Okay. Pen's not worth it. You take something else or you do something else. But at the end of the day, it's about that perception, right? How do I feel like I'm getting paid? Am I getting paid, appropriately, right? And so we talk about internal equity, right? The pay differential between different jobs and organization, all right? And this is something that a lot of companies, um, they try to make sure that you don't talk to other employees about how much you're getting paid, okay? They do it on purpose. And there's nothing illegal about it, right? There's no law. You can talk to anybody you want within the company about how much you get paid and how much they get paid if you want to compare. Doesn't matter, right? But when you look at, the company and how they pay people, there's a pay chart, right? There's a pay schedule, and everybody knows what it is. Okay, based on where you fall, what your position is, everybody's pay is pretty public for the most part. The base pay anyway, okay, is pretty public. And then if you really want to know what people are getting paid, if it's a publicly traded company, you go get that 10K or the 8K report, and it'll tell you exactly what the average salary is, how much the CEO makes, how much the CFO makes, how much everybody makes, right? And how much managers. It'll break all that information down. But when we look at internal equity, we're really trying to figure out when people are sitting next to each other and they're doing different jobs, right? Are they getting paid fairly based on what they're doing, right? So that's the pay differential, okay, right there. You also have a comparison between gender, right? Again, we got the ladies in the class, all right? If they did the same work you did and I gave them a B and gave you an A, there'd be some problems, right? Because I'm not being fair. I'm not being if the work is the same or better, then they should get a grade that reflects that, right? They should be compensated in such a way that reflects that and not be worried about whether or not their gender affects their pay. Okay. So we have that internal. External is really looking at, what is going on in the economy. Okay. And also how how other companies paying their employees. Okay. When they start to look at pay, in different companies, like let's just take car companies, Toyota, Ford, Hyundai, whatever, and in the same local area, they look at each other and say, okay, how much is Ford paying their managers? The same manager we have here, how much is Ford paying them? Right? Is Ford paying them more than we're paying them? Right? Is them paying them less? Right? And then we have to compare what are we getting for that. Okay. So we do this thing. Well, when I worked for Toyota, we did this benchmark thing with Ford. Ford would come in, they would look at our operations, see if they could pick anything up as far as like best practices, and we do the same thing with them. Okay. Yes, again.
Do they have to pay for that?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm sure there's some kind of arrangement they had, but that was way above my pay grade. Yeah, so I'm sure they had something, but mostly probably just mutual, sharing of information and tactics and techniques because, Ford is very much a big truck, you know, the trucks are their best sellers, where Toyota is more kind of, reliable, nothing fancy about it, but you get a Toyota, it's going to last and it's a good car, right? And a Lexus and that kind of thing. But they would also look at our pay structure because they wanted to make sure they were staying on par with what the market was calling for. Because what they don't want to do is have Toyota taking away all their good people. Okay. If I'm in the same general vicinity and the guy Toyota is making $10,000 more than me working at Ford, Guess where I'm going? I'm going Toyota, right? Because they're gonna pay me more for the same job. I already know it. Okay, it's not, cars don't change. Cars are cars. The technology might have a different name, but at the end of the day, it drives, got four wheels, doors, right? An engine, exhaust, transmission, suspension. Okay, now what? Right? And so, in order to make sure that your organization is competitive, you have to keep, kind of the external environment in mind, right? And comes in when you're doing your SWOT E, right? From the HR perspective, because HR would do a SWOT analysis also, right? Because we need to know what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, opportunities and threats out there in the job market, because you don't always have that labor force intact in your local area. Sometimes you have to go, out of state, even out of country in many occasions to get that talent to come in. But you have to be able to compensate them based on the area that they're going in. This is why you get paid more here in California than you do maybe in Missouri or in Texas. The cost of living is different. Okay, cost of living is different. But if you go to New York, you get paid even more. Or it's even interstate, you have a disparity between San Diego and San Francisco. Right, the same job here, the same thing I do here, I get paid a certain amount. The instructors or the professors over there get 2, maybe 3 times more money because the cost of living is 2 or 3 times more expensive, right? And so you really can't compare those two. If you do compare, you have to kind of step back and standardize them, right? Normalize them, and make sure, okay, we're on even on playing field. This is where the adjustment for cost of living allowance comes in, right? Anybody ever get COLA before? Heard the term COLA? No.
Yeah, I had it, but I don't.
Yeah,
I've forgotten
COLA, just cost of living adjustment. That's it. So basically what they do is they look at all the economic indicators for a particular area, and every city, for the most part, and every state has all these indicators. And so it tells me, yes, I'm going to pay somebody 50,000 in general, but if it's this job and it's in California, you have to give them this extra $10,000 on top of that pay. But if it's in New York, you have to give them extra 20. If it's in Texas, you don't have to give them anything because of the cost of living allowance, right? And so sometimes you'll see a compensation matrix or see a compensation chart, and you'll be like, wait a minute, I'm doing this job. Like people, for instance, that are working remote. This is the best thing here. We have a lot of people, especially during COVID, who were working remote. Okay, they live in a cheap state, but the company they work for is in an expensive state. Okay, and so because of that, their dollar stretches a little bit further because now they're getting paid for Texas, but they actually live in California. Right, so they're getting California money. Okay, vice versa, they could be getting Texas money because the company is headquartered in Texas, but they live in California. So it's a choice they make, right? But again, you have to kind of look at, all right, how is it, when we talk about the competition, are we keeping up? That's it. Are we keeping up with the competition, making sure that everybody is getting compensated appropriately based on the market, right? All right. And then we got individual equity, which is really equity amongst people that are doing the same job. Again, if Nazmul and, Femi or Kemi come in and they're both engineers and they're going to be doing the same job, they should be getting the same pay. Okay. Now, you have to take into consideration that some people come with extra things, right? Extra certification, extra degrees, and that kind of thing. But if it doesn't necessarily contribute directly to the job, then you're probably not going to get compensated for it. Okay. And so I say all that to say that people that do the same job should get paid the same. But because there's a stigma attached to the fact that companies don't want you talking to each other, you'll never know. Okay. You'll never know. Me and Nazmul could go be working for the same company, get hired the same day, but Nazmul's getting paid more than me. Okay, for whatever reason. But I would never know that unless I asked them. Then when I asked them, I said, "How much you getting paid?" "I get paid 100,000. "Oh, how come I'm only making 80? All right, well, now we start going down the list, trying to figure out what the difference is. What's the differential, right? Why is it that Nazmul's making more money than me? Well, Nazmul has this certification that you don't have. He also, speaks another language, right? Which is helpful in your job, right? So you got to look at all those things, and that's why it's very kind of a great area to really compare compensation as far as pay, because a lot of times you don't really know all the things that people's bringing to the table, and so because of that, you have to watch the company and be able to command what you think you're worth. All right. This is why it's important that when you go get a job, if you get the job, the first offer the company gives you, you should not take it. You should always counter offer. If they give you 85, you should go back in and say, "I want 90 or 95. Okay. Because they want to see if you are understanding what your value is. Right. Are you willing to fight for more money because you think you're worth it? Because that's what they want. They want somebody who has good self-esteem, who thinks they're worth a certain amount of money, and because they have the money, right? But no one's gonna give you free money, right? You gotta ask for it. You gotta go in there and fight, all right? So we have some different individual equity ways to pay people, right? Seniority-based systems basically is based on how long you've been with the company, or how long you've been working, that kind of thing, right? Merit-based, and the seniority-based system is interesting because we don't do it here in the United States. We don't really do seniority-based systems. But if you go to Australia, their whole pay and compensation is a seniority-based system. So for them, the older you are, the more you should get paid. Okay? The older you are, the more you get paid, right? And if you are older and you are with a certain company for a certain amount of time, they're going to pay you more than somebody that maybe is younger and hasn't been with the company as long. They're going to pay him less, even though they come in on have the same thing, have the same credentials per se. Okay. So they work on a seniority based system, right? And it seems to work for them. Right? It seems to work for them. Merit based system, right? It's really
Did you say that? Did
Huh?
you
Go
say
ahead.
the older you are with the company or the older your age?
Yeah, that's how Australia works.
The older your age.
The older you are, the more money you make.
With the company or
In general, that's how all their pay
oh,
structures are.
okay.
Yeah, they all their pay structures like that because for them they think, you get to a certain age, there's something to be said for experience, all right? And unless you took 5-10 years off, you didn't work. For the most part, if you're looking for a job and you're 50, which is unusual. This is the other thing. Most people, when they're in Australia anyway, once they get with a company, they stay with that company for like 20-30 years. So it's not necessarily a big deal to have a seniority based system because you have people that are actually, they're earning that, right? Where you have a problem is if like you have someone like me who comes in from someplace else who hasn't with the company forever, but I want this job, right? And I come in and now, all the other people that are in my same age range who've been with the company for a long time, they're like, okay, well, this guy shouldn't get paid the same amount of money, but I will, based on the fact that I'm in the same age bracket and they're expecting a certain level of experience because of my age. So they're going to pay me, they kind of compensate me for that. That's really what it kind of boils down to at the end of the day. Right. So it works well for Australia. But most areas that I'm familiar with, they use basically a regular pay, direct compensation scale based on merit-based pay, or what you bring to, skills-based pay systems. Okay. So there's definitely many, many ways in which people get compensated. especially when you start looking at jobs like sales, right? They have a base pay and they have a commission. And so if you're good at sales, I would say that's the one job that, if you want to make money, I would say go to sales, right? If you're good at it, if you're good at it, because you start with a compensation and there's really no ceiling as to how much money you can make, because it's all about commission. The more sales you make, the more commission you get. All right. And so the only thing tricky about sales is that, most companies will give you a very, very low base pay. They'll start you up like 35,000 as your base pay. All right. So 35 plus commission. Okay. And so it's on you to make the rest. All right. Now they set it up that way because they know you're gonna make a certain amount of money. Think about car dealers, right? When you go buy a car, the guy selling you the car, he's a car salesman. He's working on commission, right? So he's making 25,000, maybe $30,000 base pay, but he's working on commission and allotment. So again, I'm gonna go back to Toyota because that's what I know that system pretty well. In order for a sales guy to make $100,000 a year working for Toyota, selling cars directly at the dealership, they have to sell between 25 and 30 cars a month to make $100,000, give or take. A little bit more, because they also have bonuses and that kind of thing. All right. So you can get a car sales guy that's making $150,000, $160,000. I know 25 to 30 cars sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's nothing. All right. So any car guy that's a car person that's selling cars and is just doing their job and just coming to work every day, they're gonna sell 25, 30 cars a month. Easy. Okay, pretty easy. Unless there's a turn in the market, or there's something going on that's gonna affect that. Yes, King. Oh, I thought you had a question, Akeem.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say something like this COVID pandemic thing.
Yeah. What about it?
No, I was gonna say, you said unless there's something.
Oh,
going on.
yeah. I got you. Yeah. COVID, but COVID did the opposite. COVID basically increased the value of the used car market.
Yeah, but people weren't moving, so the new cars weren't bought. That's
Right.
well.
Right. And that's exactly
So
what
that's why the used cars became the norm.
be more important. They become a commodity because the new cars weren't moving, because they didn't want to buy anything new.
Exactly.
They wanted to buy something used.
I went to a car dealer. I wanted to change my car, and when I bought my car 3 years ago, the cars that I saw right now, I was like, "Where did you get all this crap from?" I mean, inside, I didn't tell him, but I was like, "These are not new cars. They don't. They look. He didn't have any new cars,
Right.
So he had used cars, and I guess that's what was selling, like you said."
Yeah. No, used car market's a pretty good market. Yeah. In a couple of years back, in another time in my life, I used to sell used cars, but I did it on my own. I didn't have a dealership. I just did it as a side thing, and then I had to say it's extremely lucrative.
Yeah.
Extremely. You can make between $3,000 to $5,000 on one car. So it's not a bad gig. But again, so they work on a compensation system, right? And so again, you got to look at, okay, is that compensation appropriate for what they're doing? Yes, for sales, it's appropriate because I need something to motivate you to sell. Okay, if I gave you $100,000 and didn't have anything to push you to sell, you wouldn't sell, right? You might go talk to somebody and be like, "Oh, you're looking for a new car? Yeah, sure." And then as soon as they say, "No, we're not looking to buy, we're just looking," they're like, "Okay, cool, no problem." They go away, right? But that's not how it works. Car salesmen, people that are in sales, are typically very assertive, somewhat aggressive, right? Because their livelihood depends on their compensation depends on it, right? They're not working on a skill-based system. They're working on a compensation-based system, right? And so now they have to consistently perform on a regular level, right? But the rewards that they get are extremely high, right? But this is one of the things where the more, the better you perform, the more money you make, right? So you have more control as the employee as to how much money you really make, right? Because you come in and say, you know what, it's been a rough month. I just kind of want to take it easy. I just want to kind of I just want to sell 20 cars, 25 cars. I'm good. And then maybe, next month you're like, oh, I want to do something in the next couple of months. I'm going to hit it hard. I'm selling 60 cars in 1 month, right? Or 90 cars in 2 months or something like that, right? You have control over how much money you're making, how much you get compensated, right? Whereas in the other systems, the skill-based systems, even, seniority-based system, it takes time, but the skill-based system usually, they use it primarily because you're stuck in it, sort of, right? It takes a long time to move out of it because your skill set doesn't change overnight. So why should your compensation, right? You gain your skill set over a certain period of time. So you come with a certain base of foundational skill set, but I'm going to pay you for that. But I'm not going to pay you anything more than that till you demonstrate that you've acquired new skills that are advantageous to the company, right? They have to be able to contribute and add value to the company. If they don't contribute and add value to the company, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you can tightrope. I don't care if you can juggle 10 things. I don't care if you speak 10 languages. Is it going to benefit the company? Yes, great. We'll compensate you. No? Okay. Well, I'm glad you know a lot of languages, but that's all you're going to get. All right. So you have to really look at what pay system is going to work for you. Okay. And from a financial standpoint for the organization, all these plans, they really tie into liquidity. Okay. Because remember, payroll accounts for about 60 to 70% of operating costs. Okay. So the less amount of money I have to pay, the more money I have to do other things. Right. I'm more liquid. I have more cash in the bank because I'm not paying out a bunch of money. So if I'm not paying out a bunch of money, especially for like a commission based system, it all depends on how the person performs. Then I'm not worried. I'm not tied to a certain figure. Okay. And it works both ways where the better you work, the better you perform, the more money you make. That means you're making more money for me. It's a company, right? That's why I don't mind paying you more, right? Because you're making more money if you're working on a commission. All right. All right. Any questions? No. All right. Okay. So internal equity, we kind of talked about a little bit, but we'll dive a little bit deeper, right? Job ranking, right? When you look at internal equity on a scale of, whatever, 1 to 10, okay? You got first level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, right? So that's the job ranking. Okay. What position are you coming in? Right? Am I coming in at entry level? Am I coming in at, mid-level? Am I coming as senior executive? That kind of thing, right? Job classification is more, am I doing HR? Am I doing operations? Am I doing marketing? Am I doing, some special offshoot skill set? And the job classification matters because certain people are more important to the organization than others, right? I'm not going to pay the janitor the same amount of money that I will pay Nazmul. It's just not, doesn't make any sense, right? Because the janitor is part of the custodial staff. They're there to maintain the building, make sure everything's clean, that kind of thing. Nazmul's got other things he's doing, all right? That's directly contributing to the company, that he's bringing his skill set and his aptitude to the company. So where I classify him matters. I could have Nazmul classified under custodian or custodial affairs or whatever. But then I'm saying, hey, now I'm gonna send you to the engineering department, and you're gonna work on some stuff for me in engineering. Like, wait a minute, I'm classifying a custodian. Well, yeah, I know you're only getting paid $25,000, but that's okay. I'm gonna make you do engineering work. Well, engineering work, they get paid 90,000. Well, I want the 90,000. Well, you're not classified underneath there. Okay, you're classified under this. And so it's important that there's a distinction made between this. And this is, for kind of an example, well, you guys follow football at all, like American football? A little bit? Not at all. Soccer, no, not soccer. But it might work in soccer too. I don't know, it might work in soccer, where depending on the position you get classified at, that determines your pay.
Absolutely.
Right? So the goalie doesn't get paid the same as, the other guy. The goalie might get paid more. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
For example, Ronaldo and another guy might be in the same team, but because Ronaldo brings in more people, brings in more attention, he gets paid so ridiculously.
Well, no, that would be more of a maybe point method or factor comparison, right? When I talk about job classification, I'm talking about like what position does Ronaldo play? Anybody know? Forward?
I'm striker.
Striker? Okay. So the striker is the classification, but there's also the midfielder or
the defense.
Yeah, right. Those guys get paid different. Now we're not talking about the individual talent. We're just talking about, hey, you're a striker. This is what strikers get. You're a midfielder. This is what midfielders get. Now, okay, within that particular classification, we have Ronaldo, right? We got to pay him more because we need to keep him. Right? We need to keep him. This is where it comes more down to the point method or the factor comparison, because now we're looking at individual attributes in order to formulate the compensation that's appropriate for that person. I have a bunch of strikers, right? But Ronaldo's my best striker, right? All around, one of the best players ever to play the game, right? You have to compensate for that. That's why the transfer fees are crazy when you're talking about Messi and Ronaldo and, some of these other big time names, right? They're expensive because they bring something up to the table, but they're also in a classification that their position holds them into a particular category, right? And so they get paid based on that, right? Point method is basically looking at the different things that you bring to the table and assigning a point to it. Your degree, right, is worth 10 points. Okay. You have a master's degree, that's 15 points. I have a PhD, that's 20 points. All right. And then, you have certification, 10 points. You don't have the certification, 0 points. You have 2 certifications, 20 points. And then we add it up. And then we have a metric that says if somebody has 100 points, they get paid this. If they have 150 points, they get paid this. If they have 200 points, they get paid this. Because I've now valued or added a point value to each particular skill, right? And so I weighted it, okay? Because I weighted it, now I can compare everything as far as points go and say, okay, well, based on the point system we have, you get more money, you get this, and you get that, right? Factor comparison is looking at individual attributes and comparing them to others, and comparing them to basically what intangibles do you bring to the table. Okay, again, we go back to Ronaldo and him being a striker. You kind of have to push him to the side and compare him to like someone like Messi or something like that, right? Because their skill set is so high, and so you have to really look at each factor that they contribute to the company, right, and how that impacts the bottom line. Ronaldo brings in more fans, right? People come to watch him. People come watch LeBron. People come watch, Simone Biles, right? People, the Olympics really is centered around a lot of a few certain people that are driving the viewership, right? Simone Biles is one of them. The Japanese, they're watching it because it's in their home country, right? So that's a factor you have to look at, right? And say, well, if it was another country, would they be watching as much, right? Or would they be, as successful? I don't know, right? And so you
So
have
you
to
pay
look at,
less.
yeah, you pay less, right? Exactly, right? And so you have to look at those things when you do, internally trying to figure out how much money to pay someone, because that really is the biggest issue for companies. They mismanage the workforce, and then they end up having to pay more than they should, or if they pay less, they get subpar uh, workforce, and then the ones that are good, they end up leaving eventually, right? Because they're like, I don't want to stay here. I can get paid more elsewhere, and I don't have to deal with some of this stuff, right? Um, all right, so here's the topic that we were talking about earlier: pay transparency versus secrecy. Okay, um, again, you do not. There's no law. There's nothing that says you can't talk about your compensation to anyone else. It's your business. You can talk to them if you want. You don't have to. All right. A lot of companies make it seem like it's against the law or you're breaking some kind of rule by talking about how much you get paid. But it's a tool they use in order to pay people less, to lowball people.
I was
Okay.
gonna say that.
Yeah. Because if you don't know any better,
Yeah, because I didn't know, but they made it look like it's a law. It's like a rule, for you to.
no rule. No rule at all. It's just the way they do it because they don't want. If I can get away with paying you 70,000 and I had to pay somebody else 100,000 just because they asked, cool, I'll do that. But I'm not gonna voluntarily give you 100,000 if I don't have to. If I can get you to work for 70, guess where that extra 30 is going? In my pocket. Okay, in my pocket. You have to keep in mind that you working for the organization and the organization working for you is a two-way street. All right. The company has to give you as much as you have to give them. All right. Because you have a choice. You can go to work for another company. You can start your own company. Okay. Eventually, you have enough information, you get money. The company started somewhere. Why can't you do it? You can. All right. And so company, they realize that. And so as they're starting to formulate these pay structures, the one thing they look at is, okay, what's the least amount of money that we can pay someone for this job and still get them to come work for us, right? Part of it is based on external compensation, what's going on with the market. The other part is how much do you value your worth, and how much do you understand about the whole notion of going in and negotiating your compensation. Okay, you should always negotiate, as I said before, but there's no reason as to why you can't talk to someone else about how much you get paid. It's just that they make it seem like it's something wrong, and people have really bit into it. They really bought into the whole point of, oh, if you ask somebody how much they get paid, like, oh, wait a minute, that's a personal question, I'm not going to tell you. Why not? You might be making less than me. I might be able to help you, because then if I'm making more money than you, you can go in and say, well, I don't want to say anything, or I don't want to say this person's name, but I know someone's making more money than me and we're doing the same job. We have the same credentials. All right. So what's up? Why am I not getting paid? Can you have something?
I mean, for example, you might know a place where they pay more. Like in my case,
Mm,
I knew a place. Well, it, I came from a culture where you can ask anybody, how much you get paid, and so I kind of like, the person asked me, but because I've asked someone else before and he said no, it's not. I mean, you don't touch that line.
yeah.
So when somebody asked me that, they wanted to go to another place, then how much am I being paid? So I
Yeah.
felt like, oh, no, 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 you don't touch that line.
Yeah.
Whereas I could have simply told the person, no, this is how much I get paid. Go to
Right.
the next door or company. To
Yeah. The pay transparency, it only serves to help you as the employee. Because what's going to happen is, as soon as everybody starts figuring out how much everybody's getting paid, collectively, you're going to go, okay, you know what? We need to go talk to management and say, hey, everybody that's doing the same job, bringing the same things to the table needs to get paid the same. And that's what they don't want. This is where collective bargaining comes in. This is where unions, they don't like unions. This is where it all happens because the union knows exactly how much everybody's getting paid, right? And they don't want that. So this is the issues in most labor markets. It's kind of conquer and divide, right? Keep them separated. Don't let them talk about the pay because we don't really want them to know how much we're paying their colleague, or everybody knows for the most part that CEOs make about 15 to 20 times more than the average employee, the lowest paid employee, right? Make about 15, 20 times more than that. Sometimes some make 45 to 50 times more. Okay. But because it's publicly traded, you get to know that information, but you don't get to know really how much your colleague is making unless you ask them. All right. But again, it's all a kind of unspoken type rule because they don't want to have to give the money up if they don't have to. All right. If I can get it for cheap, why not? All right. It's the same thing as us going as consumers. If I get to the store and I can get it for $10 here, why would I pay $20 over there? I get $10 here. I'll take it. All right. Same product. That's why you shop around. Okay. And so it's very much the fact that you can talk to your employees about pay. And a lot of companies are now starting to switch that up where they're very transparent with pay and how much people are getting paid and that kind of thing, because they're getting sued a lot. There's a lot of lawsuits for, not following the Equal Pay Act, unfair compensation. There's a lot of that stuff going on because, sometimes you have people that get hired by their buddies. All right. You have nepotism where people are getting hired by their families and that kind of thing, which is illegal. Okay. Nepotism is illegal. So just remember that. Okay. All right. All right. So what I want to do right now, we're going to take a 10-minute break and come back at 6:40. Okay. And the reason I'm doing that is because the class has to go till 2 hours and 30 minutes. So I've been getting in trouble because I don't go 2 hours and 30 minutes. I don't like to go 2 hours and 30 minutes. Okay. And now they got me on video saying that. So we're gonna take 10-minute break. We'll come back and then we'll continue. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. All right, everybody back? And Bull's back. Yeah. The team is back. Keen is back. Femi, I think, is back, and Kimmy's back too, I think. All right. Okay. So this particular exhibit here is just talking about the federal government and their pay scale, right? So the way the government has their pay scale, they have a few different scales, but the primary one is called the GS um, schedule, right? Government servant schedule. GS stands for government servant, all right? And so it goes from GS1 all the way to GS15. And then from GS15, they have something called SES, which is a senior executive schedule. And so the way it works is that GS1, of course, has, it's very entry level, basic, super basic. And I don't know anyone who's actually a GS1. No job actually starts at GS1. It's just there. Okay. But within each GS grade level, there are 10 steps. All right. So you could be a GS1 step 1, GS1 step 2. And each step is an increase in pay based on the number of years you've been with the company, been with the organization, or been in the system. All right. And so I have the ability as a supervisor's leader to, reward people based on that. And also there's an incentive to motivate people because they know every 2 or 3 years that they'll be getting an increase in their step. Right. And so if I'm at GS5 and I've been in GS5 for 2 years, more than likely I'm going to get a GS6 or GS5 step 5. I'm going to get a GS5 step 6. Right. So you keep going until you get to, step 10. And once you get to step 10, the hope is that you get promoted to the next GS level. All right. So if you're GS5, you're step 10, you looking to get promoted to GS6. Okay. Now that's not to say that you could be a GS5 and get promoted to GS6 or GS7, GS8, 9, 10, whatever. But that's just the way they do their job. They're scaling. And so the government is one of the few places where you can see exactly how much everyone gets paid. Okay. Everyone from top to bottom. And when I say top and bottom, I'm talking about like from the president on down. Everybody knows exactly how much you get paid. All right. There's no merit bonuses. There's no, this seniority pay, but that's built into the system. Okay. So the government's one of the places where you can see, I know exactly how much the president makes. When I was in the military, everybody knew how much exactly I made based on my rank. All right. And that's how it is in most militaries for the most part, right? Most government positions, they know how much a person makes, right? And it's pretty public because again, the money that the government uses is the public's money, right? It belongs to the people, all right? And so because of that, you have to have special rules and just really keep track of what's going on with the money, right? Okay. All right. This is just a sample point system, okay? I was explaining earlier as to how they do it, right? So at each factor, right, education is 15 points, 30 points here, 45 points. But you can see as each level goes up, the points get more for certain things, right? And that's because at this level, right, factors here, level, at right here, we're expecting you to have a certain amount of experience. Okay, certain amount of experience, certain amount of skills that you're bringing to the table. Right. And so this could be a high school diploma. This could be a PhD. Okay. You get more points based on the degree. Experience, same thing. Right. Fresh out of college, somebody's been working for a long time. Right. In the particular skills, in the particular industry. Right. Working conditions, responsibility. Right. So these are all what we call compensable factors. Okay. These are basically the base or foundational factors that every company uses to formulate their pay schedule. All right, education, the responsibility, scope of the job, difficulty of the job, working conditions. Okay, that's a big one that people don't account for. The more hazardous the job and the environment you're working in, the more pay you're gonna get. Okay, because now I'm putting you in a position where you could maybe get hurt or the circumstances aren't ideal, and so I have to compensate you for that. All right. So just an example of a sample point. All right. These are Hay compensable factors, and Hay was another, guy. He's a social scientist. All right, and he came up with his own version of it per se. Okay, but the Hay compensable factors is important because it depends on the job you're doing. Okay, depends on the job you're doing. If I, for instance, have you guys ever been on a 163? The 163 here on the highway.
Yeah,
163.
every day.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
What do you got? Is the 163 full of traffic, or is it a nice highway? What do you think about the 163?
It has traffic, especially
traffic,
from
right?
after the Friars Road
Yeah.
towards downtown. It's
Yes.
really
Okay. It's really bad, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I think about the 163 and when they were building the 163, I think about who did they hire to build this thing, right? To come up with the freeway. Because the design is like terrible. Okay. And so I think about the city and the fact that the city doesn't want to spend too much money, right? But they want to get something done because that's how cities are. Cities don't like spending money, but they want the best, they can get, right? So this is where the compensable factors comes in, right? The know-how. Do you understand what you're trying to do? Do you understand the nuances of civil engineering? Right? Because that's who build the road. Civil engineers, those guys come in, structural engineers, and they come in to build freeways and those kind of things, right? But the reason I hired them is because of the know-how. Right? What's your level of your aptitude level of know-how, right? How do you problem solve? Okay. Now you can get somebody that is okay, right? Somebody that, and I'm using the grades as example, just for this scenario. So if I have somebody, better yet, let's just say you go to the hospital, and I think I've used this before, and that's right because I used it before because Fatima got some stuff done to her, but she just got stitches at the. No, she was visiting a friend. Okay, so let's just say you got to go in to the hospital, right? Do you want the doctor that graduated last in his class? Or do you want the doctor that graduated first in the class? Who do you want?
none.
None?
First.
I want the one who is in between.
You want the one in between. Nazma, who do you want?
First.
First. Akeem, who you want?
First, of course.
Okay,
First.
Femi, who you want?
Intellectually capable.
Okay.
I know, but they're just bookworm. They might not know everything. It's just my personal opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. All right. They might not know everything, right? So
I'm scared of first rankers, to be honest.
it goes back to the field, right? Normally, the doctors and those kind of guys that graduate top of their class, it's because they're really good. Medicine's kind of like that. If he or she is top of the class, they're probably really good. Okay, at the bottom of the class, they're good, but they're not as good. Okay, again, this goes back to know-how. I want to compensate people for know-how. Okay, because it matters if you are going to a hospital and you're going to get some life-threatening surgery, right? Or better yet, someone that people never think about. the anesthesiologist. Okay, everybody familiar with who an anesthesiologist is and what they do, right? Okay, so they had a case here in San Diego, probably 5 years ago, where the anesthesiologist was okay, and so he came in, and the anesthesiologist, the only job is to prescribe you the medicine, to make you fall asleep, to keep you asleep till you're done with the surgery, and just monitor you as the surgery goes, right? So the anesthesiologist is basically walking around different surgeries and making sure that their levels are good, right? Because the whole point is for you to stay asleep while they do what they got to do. We had a case where the anesthesiologist wasn't that great, and somebody woke up in the middle of the surgery as they were cutting the person's body parts, right? So you imagine how much pain that must have been for that person, right? This goes back to know-how, right? Because anesthesiologists, anybody want to guess how much anesthesiologists make? Take a guess, just throw a number out there.
75 to 100 an hour.
How much?
75 to 100 an hour.
Oh, that's so, Edith, where you find that anesthesiologist at? That's a cheap one. I need to get one of those. That's a cheap anesthesiologist. Anesthesiologists make about $450,000 to $500,000 a year.
Oh, no, I'm talking about an hour.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah. No, they make more than that an hour. Yeah, they make about $400 or $500 an hour. Easy.
Wow.
Yeah, easy. Right.
I'm going to specialize in anesthesiology then.
But it's a very risky job because
Yeah.
their insurance is high. Okay.
Mhm.
And they can kill somebody without even being around. Because the anesthesiologist doesn't set the levels right. Again, you have a situation where the person wakes up in the middle of the surgery, or they die before it's even over because you haven't set the medication right. You weren't aware of their allergies, those kind of things, right? This is where know-how comes in. So I want to pay people for know-how. That's why the hospital system is so expensive here in the States, because you get paid for know-how, right? Cardiologists, neurosurgeons, brain surgeons. How much you think they're paying those guys and girls? A whole lot of money, right? That's why it costs you, $10,000 for 2 days at the hospital, and all they give you is Jello. Okay? Because Femi, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking about the know-how, and I was looking. Okay, you're absolutely correct about the medical line.
Yeah.
Like somebody finishing top of their class,
Yeah.
probably being better than the person that finishes lower in their class. But
Mhm.
when it comes to technical stuff like engineering,
Yeah.
I don't think finishing top of your class means you are better than the person that finishes probably middle or lower.
I agree with that.
So how do you classify the know-how when it comes to other fields apart from the medical field?
Basically, it's going to be your body of work. It's going to be the fact that, well, initially it's going to be, hey, I'm going to have to go off the fact that you were first, second, or third in your class, right? Because you demonstrated that you have some aptitude. But then when it really boils down to it, I'm going to have to examine your body of work. As you do your work, if it's not up to the level that I expect, someone who graduated first, second, or third in their class should be performing, then I know that particular metric doesn't really mean anything, right? And so I have to look at the body of work, because that's going to take time. So as things come up, you have one surgery or one project, you did really well. Another one comes up, you're doing well, right? You're showing that you have the aptitude and the understanding of what's going on. You're doing very well. But then on the other side, maybe you did graduate number one in your class, but your body of work isn't really demonstrating that. Okay. And so guess what? I might have to let you go, or you're gonna have to go back and get some more training, or we have to figure it out. Okay, so that's really the only way you can really, evaluate the know-how over time. It's not something you can necessarily do, initially, because I have to have some place to start to hire people, and it has to be based on the fact that when they were in school, they did well. And that's pretty basically it. Email. Okay, cool. All right. So I don't know if that answers your question, Femi.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does, but I've heard of situations where I hear companies don't want to hire first class, they prefer the middle class people. Why is that?
Well, the thing is that usually, and I'm just saying this anecdotally, right? Because I haven't done the research, but usually the guys that are first, second, and third, those people, they tend to be, they're not well-rounded. They tend to be, the reason they are first in their class is because that's all they did was study, figure that out, right? But then when it comes to other aspects of their life, they don't do well, all right? There's a lot of smart people out there who did well in school, but they have no social skills. They don't know how to deal with people. They don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to behave. They just are awkward, right? And they don't know anything else. So because of that, usually the people that are in the middle, they're in the middle because they have different things going on. Yes, they're good at medicine, or they're good at whatever they went to school for, but they're also good at other things, right? So for instance, all of you getting, doctorates, right? But I'm sure, and I know for sure, Akeem has other things he likes to do that he's good at. He's good at content creation. He's, he likes film and that kind of thing, right? He's more well-rounded. And so I rather the well-rounded person, because I know that person isn't like, they're not rigid, right? They bring other things to the table, and that those other things offer you different perspective on things, right? I have different ways of looking at things. It's like saying, because I was in the military, I can give you a perspective of what it was like being in the military. But I also am a professor with a PhD. I can give you that perspective too. But then for those of you that don't know, I played basketball, right? When I was younger, played high school, played a little college, right? I can give you that perspective, right? But my GPA was never like 4.0. My GPA was always like 3 point something, right there, B plus, A minus, around that, right? Because I had other things I wanted to do. I was like, I don't want to be stuck in the book all the time. I have other interests. And so normally when you have people in the middle, they tend to be more well-rounded, and they tend to be more balanced, right? Than the guy at the top, or even the guy at the bottom. Because the guy at the bottom is like too much partying, probably. Where the guy at the top is like no partying, and they're just stiff. Right? You can't get them. So that's why most companies typically like the people in the middle that have other things going. They have a personality, they have, other interests. They're not just stuck in that one thing, because if that one thing gets taken away from you, then what? Right? What if you're a surgeon and you get in an accident and you lose a hand? Then what happens? All right. So you kind of have to take it. That's kind of the approach they have with that. Is that, Femi, that answered?
I want to
Yeah.
say something.
Okay. Go ahead, King. King, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been worked in the HR aspect of recruiting IT guys. We actually sat down and we talked about this, and we realized that in every vocation, virtually everybody is relevant, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Whether you're first class, whether you're second class, whether you're fifth class.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, it depends on the HR to categorize who you are. Some people are idea oriented.
Yeah.
They love intellectual work. They can speak they can write, they can design, like the engineering Femi is talking about. There is a place for the first class because they do a lot of CAD CAM.
Yeah.
I mean, if you cannot design on paper, how are you going to get the precision when you're working? I mean, back in the day, they do more of trial and error.
Yeah.
You know, they use ruler, but right
Mhm.
now you use computers. If you
Mhm.
don't know how to use if you're the third class and you're not good at using the computer, how are you going to, you know, bring precision
Right.
to the field? But the third class guy might be hands-on, might be very, very fantastic, you know, hands-on. He can, you know, twist things, he
Mhm.
can make things, he can, you know, make things work the way they should, he can
Okay.
mold things well,
Mhm.
whereas the first class cannot do that. So it
Okay.
depends on, like, I think it depends on the manager, the HR manager, to say, oh, this guy, this is where you belong.
Mhm.
You are more of an idea-oriented person. You're
Okay.
not a people-oriented person. So I won't put you into marketing. In
Okay.
fact, most I can say, I've been recruited as many as 100 staff.
Mhm.
Most of the first class students are
Mhm.
not people oriented. They are socially terrible.
Right.
They don't know how to relate. They don't know how to. In fact, in software as well, a software developer
Mhm.
does not mostly deals with software.
Yeah.
It deals with is an interface between software and people. It's the
Mhm.
software programmer that now gets all the, you know, everything that has been put in place and cooks it.
Mhm.
So there are some people that will work with ideas on paper. You know, those you can say, okay, you're a first class student. But when it comes to the technicians,
Mhm.
I don't think somebody who's a first class in the classroom or in the training room
Mhm.
might, I mean, it might be better, but in most cases, it's those guys that that are hands-on,
Yeah.
that can really do the job. So everybody has a place. I mean,
Yeah.
if there was no computer, you can say, okay, maybe the third class or the second or the middle class. But in these days, you have CAD CAM. The very first thing they put in front of you is what do you call that, AutoCAD,
Yeah.
as an
Okay.
engineering student.
Mhm.
So if you're not good, I mean, if you don't know anything about AutoCAD, the person who is going to recruit you will say, sorry,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's nothing.
That's the basic. That's the basic requirement.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah. That makes. Yeah.
that's what I just.
I agree. Yeah. I agree, and I think that kind of goes along the same lines as what Femi was asking. You know, kind of like, hey, you have to, you have to know your job, but you have to be well rounded too, right? And why is it? It doesn't necessarily correlate number one in the class to being the best.
Mhm.
It's not, right? And this is
Yeah,
why we
everybody
have,
has a place.
yeah, this is why we have different universities. Everybody can't go to Harvard, everybody can't go to Yale or Princeton, right? But at the same time, there's a lot of other great, great schools with people that are coming out there with just as much, you know, knowledge and skill and ability as anybody even from Harvard. I know a lot of Harvard guys. They're not any smarter than me,
Exactly.
right? They're not. And it just, it's just the fact that Harvard has a name and if you can get into the school and that kind of thing, right? But you guys are absolutely right. There's no correlation between number one in the class and high performance, right? It's just not. But from a organizational standpoint, I have to have some way in which to determine who I'm going to hire and how I'm going to compensate. And that's why that's why that's important as to, where you went to school, what degree you have, where you kind of fall in your class ranking, because everybody's so good at that level, right? Everybody's so good. It's like saying, if I try to compare all you guys, I have to find something to differentiate you guys. And it's something minor too. It could be something as simple as, hey, Akeem uses more citations in his paper, so he gets a higher grade. That's how it is, because you get to a certain point where everybody has a high degree of aptitude, high cognitive skills, and so those little things are the ways that you differentiate between where they fall, right? Minor stuff, right? But just because you graduate at the top of the class doesn't mean you were better. It just doesn't, right? It just doesn't. But from an organizational standpoint, they're going to look at where you fell in the class, because we have to have some way to break you out. Because if that was the case, then I would have to hire everybody, because everybody's resume looks the same. All right, so I have to figure it out. How do I compensate based on those two things? All right. Next thing for the compensable factors, problem solving, right? As far as Hayes compensable factors, right? How good are you at kind of solving complex issues and looking at things outside of the box? Okay, that's a really valuable asset when you can find somebody who can solve problems without necessarily needing any prompting, right? There's people out there, they just see things differently. They get a solution for things very quickly. Other people, they don't see things, right? They just kind of see like it is what it is, and they kind of confine to the rules that they're aware of, but they don't think outside of the box. Okay, so you have varying degrees of those folks, and a lot of times it all depends on how much leeway I'm given as an employee. If my boss says, "Hey, it's all you, run with it, whatever you come up with, we're gonna go with," then that gives me the confidence to think outside of the box. But if my boss says, "Hey, this is the way I want it, this is the way it needs to look, you need to follow the rules," okay, there might not be a rule in there that helps me solve the problem, right? So based on the rules, this is the solution I came up with. It's not a good solution, but based on the parameters I'm given, this is the solution I come up with. And so you have to kind of look at it and say, hey, how good is this person at problem solving, but what resources am I giving them? What leeway am I giving them? What space am I giving them to be a free thinker, right? And this is why, you know, if you go work for companies like Google, Amazon, you know, Facebook, any real techie type folks, they always look at people that are thinking outside the box, because nothing they do is really conventional. And the next best thing, the next newest thing is always something that someone thought of that's outside the box, right? Let's take Robinhood, for example, right? Robinhood just went, everybody knows what Robinhood is, right? Yeah, Robinhood, everybody's good with that, right? And all Robinhood is, you know, that you can buy and sell stocks, right? As an individual person. I wouldn't have never thought of that. I always think, let me go to Charles Schwab or go to my broker and, you know, pay him a bunch of money to buy stocks. E-Trade, right? Those guys are thinking outside the box. They're problem solvers, right? And so you want people like that, but you have to pay for that kind of thing, right? You have to pay for that kind of thing. Either add a question.
No.
You said, no. I said, I have a question.
Oh, okay. I thought you said, do I have a question?
No, I have a question. So you're in the medical field. So when I was talking about the pay for the anesthesiologists and those doctors, you have more insight. Maybe you don't, but I'm assuming you do, right? And I know it could be based on Nigeria or here in the States. You know, is the pay disparity? Is it a huge pay disparity based on the particular skill set that the doctors bring to the table?
Sorry, one moment. Okay, so it depends on years of experience that the anesthesiologist has, whether he's a new grad or has so many years previous experience also. Okay. And most essentially certification these days, they're really particular about certification and hands-on. So our certification these days are not just only sitting in front of computer, but we're having skill stations these days, and it requires a lot of practice, and you have to pass the practical before you get certified for that particular area. So all those things add up in your compensation. Okay. Not necessarily your base pay, but everybody strive for that compensation where you get paid for being certified in an area. So for instance, if you're an RN, but you're not certified for ACLS, you
Mhm.
only have BLS. So your base pay as a BLS RN is not the same thing as ACLS RN. So and then as RN, even though you have all those certification, you now have a specialty, you get paid higher.
Right.
So all those things add up in your compensation, and you can never compare a new grad with an experienced
Right. Yeah,
RN.
experience
So,
doctor.
and then those, as you climb up, the number of years climb up and the experience climb up,
Mhm.
depending on the content of your CV. So many times when you have two entry nurses, we don't get the same payment. They
Right.
look back. So if they
Okay.
start me on $40 because I am internationally educated, I don't have US experience, they might pay my colleague who has been here for 10 years
Mhm.
the same time, graduated the same time, but the experiences they they might start out on a base pay of 60.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of
Yeah.
compensation pattern that we have in
Okay.
nursing. I may not be able to say that for anesthesiologists, but I know those guys, they're in the category of their own too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the pattern for nurses.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. So with that too, also, depending on the accountability you have in your job, right? Who are you accountable to and what are you accountable for? Right? When you're talking about, nurses, specifically RNs, you're talking about doctors that are specialists, cardiologists, anesthesiologists, those kind of guys, their accountability is high because you literally have someone's life in your hand. So you're accountable to a high level. So you have to compensate for that. Okay.
Right,
So
right.
all those factors, companies take into consideration when they have to hire somebody because you have to make sure that you compensate people based on what they actually are bringing to the table, not necessarily, what the title commands or that kind of thing. Okay.
Right. And one of the main questions that they pose now during interviews is what areas of expertise are you bringing in? What are
Right.
you bringing on the table? So
Mm-hmm.
it's quite different from what we used to do years ago, where you just have a straight interview. So now we have more behavioral questions, and we have more questions, like, especially if you are applying for a higher level position, what they ask you now is, what are you bringing?
Mm-hmm.
What new are you going to introduce?
Right.
How are you different from every other nurse that we have? So those are the kind of questions we have these days. And
Okay.
I've pretty done several kinds of interview, and I noticed that it's like a new trend, because it wasn't like that a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a new trend now. All they're asking is, what's about you? We have 25,000 applicants. Why are you different? What makes you
Right.
different?
Mm-hmm.
We have, and we can pay some people cheaper than what
Yeah.
you are negotiating, and we can train them,
Right. Yeah.
So, but if you tell us that when we train you, add this experience with whatever we have, then, because they are all about moving the organization forward now, most focused organization want you to align with their goal, even right from the time of employment. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not that like we used to do before, we say, oh, goals are changing, objectives are changing, everybody align. No, right from the time of recruitment, they want to know if you align. What do you want to be in the next 3-4 years? How does that speak into the goal of this company?
Right.
And so in your own area, the expertise you say you want to acquire, how does it fit into achieving our goals? So that's basically the pattern I'm beginning to see in this, especially big corporations and companies. And
Yeah.
if you align and they see that you are a very potential candidate, they can put everything down for you. So they begin to give you different kinds of offer, and then you pick it up from there, and you'll be amazed, because they just want you to bring that expertise on in your job, and
Yeah.
they don't hesitate. They can give you like 3-4 months training
Mm-hmm.
just for you to be able to come up and become the formidable kind of employee that they want.
Yeah. Which makes sense. It's because they're really, based on how they evaluate the job, and that sounds like it's more of a factor comparison type, system where they're looking at the things that you bring into to the organization that we should be paying you for, right? And there's some factors that you have, or some skill set you have, or attribute I should say, that we're not necessarily going to pay you for that, right? But there's other things that you bring to the table that we need to compensate you for, but we need to know what those things are, because they may not necessarily be your normal run-of-the-mill factors, right? So there's different evaluation methods, as we talked about earlier, in which to how do I assess, compensation, and how do I figure out, what is someone, should be getting paid, right? All right, external equity, we talked about really trying to figure out, what's the market calling for, right? What are all the other companies doing? What are all the organizations doing? How much is a anesthesiologist getting paid, right? Nationwide, locally, internationally, right? What's the pay differential? And comparing those things and saying, okay, well, if they get paid, $500,000 in the States, they get paid, $500,000 in, overseas, and they get paid, $450,000 locally. Okay, then we can kind of come to a kind of a consensus. Okay, what's the base pay we're going to offer? Because now it's competitive, right? There's not such a disparity to where if someone says, hey, I'm gonna give you $500,000, and I say I'm gonna give you $475,000, there's not too much of a difference, right? The $25,000 is not gonna be the difference maker, really, if that person taking the job or not. It's really gonna be about the organization, where they want to be, some of the personal, desires and wants, right? And then they'll figure it out. But the external equity piece is really about, trying to find a number or a place that's going to compete with all the other companies and neutralize the compensation aspect of it all, right? Because some companies have more money, right? I can just pay somebody more, right, and get them, right? I want to neutralize that. I don't want it to be just about pay. I want it to be the fact that you want to come work for this company and you want to, develop your skill set here and you want to be here, right? And so when you look at the external market, we're really trying to figure out, okay, am I in line with everyone else? Okay. So when you look at external equity, you look at the different policies, right? You have the lag policy. So basically, lag policy means basically you're behind. You're underpaying your people, okay, as compared to the market, okay. Market policies, of course, you're paying as the market dictates, okay. The market says, doctors get $500,000, you paying $500,000, okay. Lead policy, though, is different, where lead policy is you're paying more than the market is calling for, okay. So lag policy is you're paying less than what the market's calling for. Lead policy is you're paying more than the market is calling for, right? But if you look at the lag policy, yes, you might get paid less than what the market is calling for, but then a lot of times there's other things, right? Like I said, you have to consider, all right? And is it in a place where I want to be, right? Which is a big deal for if you ask people that live in San Diego, oh, you make this much money here. If you go over here, you can make more money. Yeah, but I like living in this area. Like I like being, downtown. I don't want to be in Temecula. I don't want to be in Escondido. I want to be downtown, right? And so I might make a little less money being downtown. Or maybe I want to be in Escondido because I want to buy a house and I want my family to be out in a more of a home, family setting. So maybe I'll take less money and work in Escondido, but I have other things that are compensating for that, right? I get my weekends off, which is a big deal, right? So, hey, we'll pay you $500,000, but you got to work weekends. Or we'll pay you $450,000 and you don't work weekends. Guess what? Give me the $450,000 because I don't want to work weekends because my time is more valuable to me than the $50,000, right? And so when you have lag policies, there's always some other things going on, right? Where you can equate it to like an internship. Anybody ever done an internship? Yeah. All right. Internships for the most part are not paid. All right. What you're getting is the experience. And if it's a good company, you're getting to put on your resume that you work for this company, right? And then maybe down the line when you graduate, they might bring you on, right? But they're not paying you, but they have all these other perks, right? They have all these other things, reputation, the fact that, you did a special program, for this company, that goes on a resume. So that says something about you and your skill set and your aptitude without necessarily directly compensating you for those particular skills and aptitude, right? And so again, depending on, what the organization is trying to do, they'll figure out which policy to kind of follow. And it's very subjective. Some particular jobs they'll follow the market policy. Some they're going to follow the lead policy because they really need that person and they know that person is like a scarce, that skill set the person is bringing is very rare. Like, for instance, you just can't throw a rock and hit a neurosurgeon or a brain surgeon. Those guys they're just not walking around like that. But you can throw a rock and maybe hit a doctor, right? Just a general practitioner. You might be, and you'll hit a dentist. Or maybe yet, if you throw a rock, you hit a lawyer, right? Because lawyers all over the place. There's a bunch of lawyers, all right? But there's certain types of lawyers that are hard to find. Patent lawyers, right, are very difficult to find. Bankruptcy lawyers, they're not hard to find, but because the bankruptcies are so difficult and so complicated, those guys command a high dollar, right? Criminal defense lawyer, right? So you have to look and say, all right, these people are hard to get, they're hard to find, so I have to pay them more, okay? But again, it's an examination of the external environment, what the market is commanding or demanding or saying you should pay, and how you want to go about, implementing your policy based on what you need and how much money you have to support that. Right? We look at individual equity. Again, we're looking at, basing pay on seniority. In some instances, merit pay and incentive pay. Right? Incentive pay, a lot of times, that's just tied to the organization and how well it does, kind of a profit sharing, type endeavor. Right? Merit pay depends on how well you're doing. All right. How well are you meeting the objectives? You have, and this works well with group projects, project managers, those kind of things, right? Those kind of folks, as they hit these milestones, they get a certain amount of money for hitting getting the job done in the 2 weeks, coming on the budget, at this point, at whatever point it is in their particular cycle. So you get these merit pay systems. Incentive pay, kind of the same things, but it is, a lot of times incentive pay are really based on how well the organization does. All right, how well is the company doing? Because now it's a collective effort, and everybody's gonna get it, right? It's not just gonna be you, right? Everybody will get it individually, but it's based on a team effort. Merit pay is usually based on your effort, your production, your performance, right, and what you're gonna get. Skill-based systems, of course, what we do now, okay? Based on what skill set you bring to the table, we'll, have a pay system that goes with that. And most companies, that's what they use, skill-based systems, okay? Team-based system, same thing. Based on how well the team does, we will compensate you, based on that, okay? And so if the team does poorly, you're probably not gonna, do well. But if the team does well, then you do well. Typically, you'll find this like type of pay plan at like the team manager level, okay, or the district manager or the regional manager, because those guys are in charge of groups of people that are doing different things. And so as your team goes, you go, right? If your team's doing well, that means you're doing well as a manager. If your team's doing bad, that means you're doing poorly as a manager, all right? And so their pay is based a lot of times on how well the team does, because the team does good, it means you're going to do good. It means the company is going to do good, right? So they connect all those things, and it kind of has a kind of a pressure or a what you call it? What's it? There's a term I'm looking for. Peer pressure, sort of, Yep, peer pressure, right? Because if you don't do well, that means they won't do well. That means we won't do well as a company, right? And if that goes on for an extended period of time, what's going to eventually happen is we're going to get rid of you at the bottom. And if that doesn't change, we're going to have to get rid of you at the middle. And if it still doesn't change, guess what? The whole company's gone, right? And so this is why, a lot of companies harp on team performance and team dynamics, because the team performs well, company performs well. It's usually a direct correlation. All right. All right. Some illegal issues and compensation. We talked about this a couple weeks back. Civil Rights Act 1964. Again, basically Title VII is there to protect the workforce. Okay, from grievances to compensation, to sexual harassment, to racial discrimination, everything across the board. Equal Pay Act of 1963, of course, requires equal pay for equal work. And we're really talking about gender here, right? The gender is really the key point. And that, comparable worth, basically equal pay for equal work, you should have some kind of standard to where, if we're doing the same job and we are producing or contributing in the same way to the company, we should get paid the same. Okay, we should get paid the same. So you don't really see the intricacies of all these things in the workforce, because most people, again, keep to themselves when it comes to discussing their compensation. They don't talk about their compensation, really, right? And so you don't necessarily see how these things are really, affecting the company, affecting individuals behind the scenes, right? You just see the surface, and you're just really concerned about your own individual well-being, right? So you don't really get it. But if you were to go to HR and be in charge of payroll or managing payroll, you would see, okay, how if different factors play into people's compensation, right? And your boss, the supervisor, has a direct line into affecting that compensation, right? So the performance is definitely key, and HR is just really a manager of things, right? HR doesn't necessarily dictate pay, right? The way HR dictates pay is based off what the company policy is, right? It's not HR making stuff up. HR is just saying, hey, based on the market and based on what we are trying to achieve, this is how much the company is offering. Not me as HR. This is what the company's offering. I'm just the company's proxy. I'm just here to represent the company and try to get you hired and working here. Is what we're offering, right? But that the supervisors and the managers really have more input, and the hiring managers have more input as to compensation. Why? Because they'll say, hey, yes, we know we're offering this guy 50,000, but we need to give 65 because this guy's really good, or this guy's not good, or whatever the case may be, right? Or this person is bringing a particular skill set to the table. We need to give more money or less money. But that really is about the hiring manager or the manager themselves. HR doesn't necessarily have a say in that. Okay. The only thing HR is saying, hey, look, 60,000 is our cap. So whatever you want to give him up to 60,000, great. We can't give him any more than that. Right. If we need to give him more, then we have to go talk to the boss and that kind of thing. You have to justify why this person deserves more money. All right. Fair Labor Standards Act 1938, super old. It really was the first act that set minimum wage and overtime and kind of the things that you should expect from your employees based on how much you're paying them and their position. Okay, so of course that's old and not necessarily applicable anymore. Okay, some other legal issues in compensation. I'm not really going to go into that because for the most part, each state has a little tweak on each of their compensation and how they pay. And California is one of the most complicated places when it comes to compensation. Okay. HR in California, everybody hates HR in California. If you're not in California, all the other states hate the HR in California because it's very complicated. They have all kind of provisions and this, that, and that. You got to pay him for this. And California is a nightmare when it comes to HR. Okay, and most states don't like dealing with people from California. All right, so just keep that in mind. Okay, keep that in mind. All right, when it comes down to executive compensation, as I said, all right, this here typical annual compensation for senior executives, it all depends on how the package is put together. All right, it could be totally different. All right, as a CEO, this is going to be 10%, and then the rest of this will be the 90%. All right, and for the most part, 10% would be salary. The other 90% would probably be stock and stock incentives. Okay, because I want to have something to hang over your head as a CEO. If you're making $5 million as your base pay, and depending on how much or how well the company does, you do better, and it's tied to stocks, then you're going to make sure that the company has a good earnings per share. All right. So, for example, anybody know how much the CEO for Disney made last year? Anybody? Nobody knows how much the CEO for Disney made last year? He made $45 million last year. Okay. 30 million of
Do
that.
you think CEOs have been overpaid?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah. I don't think any CEO should be making more than $5 to $6 million. And that's a lot of money. Right? Because
It is.
as compared to the person that's getting paid the least, yes, you have less responsibility, but at the same time, you got to take care of your folks. Because nobody CEOs pay, think about it. Somebody's getting paid $45 million. How many people can you pay with that? How many can you pay a like good salary with that? 50 to 60,000, $70,000 a year. A lot of people, right? But because of their job and the inherent risk that they take in taking the job as a CEO, I can fire you right away. Hey, you messed up, you going tomorrow. I could hire you today. You mess up, I'll fire you tomorrow. Right? The uncertainty that goes with is one. Two, the risk that is inherent to the job. You're making all these life-changing decisions, not only about the company, but about people's livelihood, right? Because the decisions you make as CEO affect everyone. So there's a lot of, accountability, there's a lot of risk. So there's a lot of decision-making you have to do. So it's a pretty heavy burden, right? It's a lot of stuff it's a lot of stress. So you have to compensate for that. And really you're compensating the CEO for their vision, right? And their ability to take the company in a certain direction, right? That you want it to be. And you want to grow, you want to expand, or you want to keep it a certain way. You want to be the leader in that particular industry, right? You want quality to increase and that kind of thing, right? And so when it comes to compensation for senior executives, it varies, but they get paid a lot because of the decisions they make. Right? And decisions that they make are heavily weighted and affect so many people and affect the company in such a critical way that you have to make sure that you bring people on board that are extremely capable, and you have to compensate them that way. But I still think that CEOs get paid way too much. But I don't mind.
I read
Mm?
I read they're being paid like 350 times more than the typical worker.
Yeah. But at the same time,
That's a lot.
You gotta look at the package and how it's built, and a lot of it is built off of stocks. And I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
If you take $1 million as your base pay, and then the rest is stocks, and depends how the company perform. If you're doing your job and you're doing it well, and the stock keeps climbing, it goes up, and the earnings per share keep going up, you deserve, what you get, because you have $1 million, you have 1 million shares. Your job is to increase the share price. If you do that, then you should be able to cash that in. I agree with that. But to give direct compensation with no, not, having it structured to where something is tied to your compensation, like stocks, or your performance isn't tied to something tangible, that's why I have a problem. I'm not just going to give somebody $45 million and be like, okay, well, if the company does bad, you still get paid. If it does great, you still get paid. No, that I don't like. I don't agree with that. But most CEOs' compensation, if not all of them, are all structured a certain amount of salary, and the rest is structured around performance-based incentives. Because that's your job, is to come in and improve the situation for the company, right? The CEO. So there's a lot of conversations about. There's a lot of conversations about CEO pay and how to make it fair and equitable. And the truth is that the CEO's job is nothing like anybody else's job. It just isn't. It's just very much a high level of stress. Most CEOs, they're working 80, 90 hours a week. These guys are, and many times it's their company they started, right? So why shouldn't they compensate themselves in an appropriate manner? The problem they run into, and this is where you get this kind of battle back and forth, where companies don't want to go public. Because as a publicly traded company, I'm under the scrutiny of the SEC, and basically I am now working for the public.
Exactly.
Because I'm taking the public's money, right? I'm trading stock. I'm taking people's money. This is why a lot of companies stay private, because nobody can regulate how much I pay myself or pay whoever I want to pay. If I decide from a private company I want to pay the janitor $150,000, that's my business. Doesn't matter. Nobody can come in and tell me anything different because I'm privately held. And so people always look at companies like, In-N-Out, Chick-fil-A, right? They're not publicly traded. And you would think, man, you guys make a whole bunch of money if you went public. There's a reason they'll go public, because they don't want the stress. They don't want that. They want to be able to take their money, give it to who they want to give it to, parcel it out like they want, control it the way they want to, without having, scrutiny or having to meet all these other requirements based on the SEC, based on, government regulation. There's a lot of things that go into going public, right? And so you see a lot of companies will stay private, right? And then they'll compensate the executives as they see fit, right? Now you can have internal shares, internal stock, and you can, do it that way and figure out you can still figure out your earnings per share and all that stuff, but internally, and it has no ties to the SEC and being publicly traded, and still figure, okay, how much do I pay the CEO? But a lot of private companies, they usually set the CEO's pay at a certain thing. And then if you perform great, company's growing. If you don't perform, we're going to move you out and get another CEO. That's kind of it boils down to at the end of the day. Let me see, what is this? All right, Femi, what's up?
Sorry, I was muted.
Is it a question you want to ask in private, or is it a question?
Yes, no, it's for the class.
Okay,
I wanted to ask if anyone has the case study article.
Okay, so before we talked about that already. So I didn't realize you guys I thought you guys had the book, but I guess that's not the case.
No, I don't have the book.
You don't have the book, okay. And you guys don't have an electronic copy of it either, huh?
No.
At all. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna change the case study to something else, and then I'm gonna change it tonight probably, and put a case study that I like, that I used for HR in my other HR classes, and it's pretty short, straight to the point, and it'd be a little bit easier for you guys to manage on the short timeline. And then for the most part, I'm going to try to post it tonight, make the change tonight. If I don't make the change tonight, I'll definitely do it tomorrow. And if I do it tomorrow, I'll give you extra time, maybe till Monday evening or Tuesday morning, to turn it in.
Okay.
That way, because I know you still have to get with your groups and that kind of thing. So But it shouldn't be too difficult if I give you this new one. It's pretty straightforward.
All right, thank you.
All right, no problem. Okay. Any other questions on that? No. Okay, good. All right. So like the slide says, we got stock options, we got stock grants. There's a bunch of different, ways in which to compensate senior executives, right? It just depends on, a public or private, right? And then depends on the size of the company, and depends on whether or not the CEO is coming in to fix the company, or if the company's already stable and it's just a matter of, hey, we just need a new CEO because the old CEO is moving out or retiring or that kind of thing, right? So a couple different things that go into senior executive pay. Of course, experience, is one of the major things when it comes to executive pay, right? What experience are you bringing? What skill sets are you bringing that are going to be advantageous to the company and help us grow? And from a strategic standpoint, what's your plan? What's your vision? All right. The CEO is not worried about like little day-to-day operations. The CEO is worried about long-term things, and right, and having a vision of where we want to go. In 5 years, we want the company to be here. Okay, you got to get somebody to come in and be able to lead in that way. All right, and so this compensation definitely has is based on that. It's subjective to that. All right. All right, some key issues in compensation, of course, determining compensation relative to the market, which we talked about. All right, balance between fixed and variable compensation. Right, fixed compensation is getting a salary or hourly wage, as compared to variable compensation where we have sales and you're based on commission. Right, that kind of varies. Whether to use a base team based or individual pay, again, that goes with the organization and how they want to approach that. And having a mix really of not only direct financial compensation, but having other things available to compensate folks with, right? Insurance is one of the big things that most people are looking for when they get a job, right? Yes, I want to get compensated, be paid, but I also want insurance for my family, medical insurance, dental insurance, that kind of thing. I like daycare. I like to, get time off, paid time off, right? All those things are all part of the compensation package. And there's a value, there's a monetary amount that's attached to those things, right? Insurance costs the company $15,000 a year for each employee, all right? So let's just say you already have insurance. You can go into the company and say, look, I already have insurance. How about you just give me the $15,000 or $10,000 or something to that effect, right? Some companies will do that if they don't have to pay for your insurance, right? Maybe they'll say, well, it's 15,000, but we'll give you half of that. Now, okay, fine, I'll take half, right? As part of your salary, as part of your compensation, all right? All right, that seems to be the end of my slideshow. I don't got no more slides to give. All right, so what I'd like to do now, and you don't have to, but if you want to take the quiz, you can, but you don't have to because we have students in the class that are online and then they'll have to take the quiz till Sunday. So it really is up to you how you want to approach it. But if you want to take the time to take the quiz now, great. If not, no big deal. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and put the change up the whatchamacallit.
The case study.
Yeah, the case study. I'm gonna go and change that. And then because I have a feeling I'm not gonna be able to get it to tonight and I don't want to waste any more time. So I'll get the case study changed out, and then you guys, it'll be an attachment and you guys can open it and just work in your same groups as you did before. Okay. And that's go ahead, Nazmo.
Yeah, so while you change the case study deadline, like is it possible if you can do the change the deadline for my draft submission?
For your draft submission is for
week 5, because I am yet to submit my draft.
Yeah. Just submit it. Just submit your draft when you're done. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, no worries. Also for the learning engagement, it's a group thing. So take a look at the learning engagement. If you haven't looked at it already, make sure that you understand it's a group assignment, but it's all about your paper. All you're going to do is talk about the challenges and some of the things that you encountered doing your paper. But you read the learning engagement, but it's a group assignment too for the LE this week. Okay, so you got those two things. But like I said, I'll extend the deadline till Monday, maybe Tuesday morning for the group work. But I think you guys will be fine once you see it. It's a little bit simpler and easier to manage. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody got any other questions? No. Okay. And I know I still haven't. And so Nazmo, you're fine because I haven't graded all the the paper drafts yet. So
okay.
yeah,
I'll be submitting it by like within next 24 hours.
Okay. Yeah. Just get it in.
Thank you so much.
Understand. No worries. Okay. Aside from that, that's all I got. We got 2 more weeks left, and then we'll be done. All right. So get everything in, do the best you can, get the work submitted, stay in communication with me, and then we'll see each other next week. And if there's anything in between that, any questions or anything like that, feel free to email me, text me, or call me, whatever the case may be. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. All right, so I want to touch on one more thing here, talk about some labor relations very quickly, okay? So, of course, it's always important for the company to have good relationship with, the workforce, okay? And so when it comes down to it, no, that's not it. Chihuahua. Excuse me, I'm sorry, taking a bit longer than boom. Okay, that's not it either. Why does it keep pulling this one up? Oh. All right, let's talk about some union membership. I apologize for the delay. All right, so unions are definitely in decline in the States. And so most workers are not necessarily big fans of union, although they like the idea of, coming together and forming as a group and going to get in together as a group. Unions have had a notorious history of being not very honest and using funds and using the union dues and account in their financial accounts for their own personal use. So, and in many ways, union is not necessarily relevant anymore because of the way we work now, right? We work in a way where, you have these different type jobs that aren't traditional, such as Uber driver or, these tech jobs that aren't necessarily fall into the category of being traditional. And so, when it comes down to it, don't necessarily need a union as an employee if the company's taking care of me and making sure that, I'm compensated well and I'm taken care of in a sufficient manner, right? And unions are really haven't done themselves any favors because they really have proven to be very stubborn and not necessarily ready to work with the organization, right? And try to, do what's in the best interest of the employees. They really are trying to play hardball with a lot of companies, and a lot of the companies are saying, not necessarily concerned with the union. We don't need a union, and so you'll find that many companies are advocates for them not having a union because they don't necessarily feel like it's the best thing for in the company, right? Even though it's a unionization is norm in many industries, right? It's not necessarily that it's a norm because it's not a norm in a lot of industries. You'll find that maybe police, have law enforcement has unions. They're labor unions in the sense of that there are bodies that will be advocates for the employee and play a middleman role when it comes to management and employee. But at the same time, many companies kind of shy away from unions, and a lot of employees shy away from unions, and they kind of go the way of using collective bargaining and those type of things in order to have a same effect as union, but only as needed, right? But employees really come together because as collectively speaking, if you have a union, you always have a sense of power. You always have an idea, or at least you feel that there's someone there that is fighting for you to get more pay, just better work environment, right? Better job security, right? And also it helps to bond and kind of build the camaraderie between the employees, right? But the union itself and the organization of labor sometimes doesn't work well because you may have a faction of the union or the organized labor force that wants to do a certain thing, right? And the majority may not want to do it, but the minority does, right? And if the minority is in the leadership role, then they may very well, consider a strike, or they may, do things that can put the employee's job in jeopardy, although the employee doesn't really necessarily have a grievance or gripe with the company. And so you have to be careful with how that all plays out. Okay. So what I'd like you to do at this time is to, make sure that you go over this particular brief. Okay. It talks about, the unions and unionization, collective bargaining agreements, and just the collective effort of the employees in order to garner better work environments, more pay, and more of the things that they would like. Right? You get more things as a collective group than you do individually. Right? There's power in numbers, and so you definitely have to be aware from an organizational standpoint of the union or any organized labor union or faction that is resident within your organization. All right, so with that, I'm going to end this particular session, and I will see you guys next week.